Welcome to Keys to the Future. I'm your host, Gabby Coe. I've enjoyed a successful engineering career and want to inspire you to remain focused on your STEM education and career. Join me as I chat with amazing guests who are shaping the future and sharing their journeys to inspire yours. Ready to unlock your potential? Let's dive in. Joining us today is Sanya Mathura, a recognized thought leader in the field of reliability engineering with a particular focus on lubrication and asset management. She has built an impressive career as an electrical engineer, author, and CEO of Strategic Reliability Solutions, which provides specialized consulting and training services in reliability and lubrication. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical and Computer Engineering and a Master of Science degree in Engineering Asset Management. She is passionate about lubrication and its key role to reliability. Sanya lives in Trinidad and Tobago and is an avid advocate of women in STEM and diversity in engineering fields. She's passionate about encouraging more women to enter technical professions and aims to provide guidance and mentorship for the next generation of STEM professionals. Welcome, Sanya, and thank you for sharing your journey in this interesting field with the Keys to the Future community.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabby. I love being here and being able to talk to you. So that's always a plus. Always good
Oh,
on my side. And you had a great introduction. Thank you for that.
so I must say, lubrication engineering might not be upfront in people's
Mm-hmm.
minds, right? But to many engineers, is the unsung hero that keeps our daily lives literally from falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
For example, without lubrication, our cars would turn into a smoky, grinding mess, right? And our
Yes.
washing machines would sound like a chaotic symphony of just metal. So, can you please tell us more about lubrication engineering, what it is, and why we should care?
Oh yeah, and like I always like to go a little bit visual or a little bit practical with this one because sometimes people just don't get it right at the get go. So I'm gonna ask you to help me with this. I'm gonna rub my hands together, and if you want, you can rub your hands together too. But what you would realize is that while you're doing that, you're building up a lot of heat in your hands. So that's called friction. First keyword. And if it is that you actually had some lotion or some sort of a lubricant between your hands, you'd realize that you wouldn't have as much friction. You wouldn't be generating as much heat. Or you wouldn't be
It would be
generating as
smoother.
much. Yes, or you wouldn't be generating as much wear because my hands didn't have any lotion just now. So, we had a little problem there. But think about it and you relate that back to your cars. Now, your cars have millions of moving parts that are rubbing together faster than my hands for sure because they can move a lot faster than I can. And if you think about it, you need to have some sort of lubrication in between those parts to actually get them moving. Now, the other part and the one thing that kind of controls this whole lubrication thing is this term called viscosity. And while it sounds like it could be this big scary thing, um, think about having a pool filled with molasses. That's very sticky and very sweet. But if you had to walk through that pool, it would be very difficult for you and you would ruin your clothes. Let's face it, you would definitely ruin your clothes. But if it was filled with water, you could move through it a little bit easier. So molasses is more viscous than water. So if you translate back to, two gears turning and you had the two gears turning with water compared to turning with molasses, molasses would be a little bit thicker and would slow down the gears because it might not be the right viscosity. But water may be too thin and you may get some wear on it. So that may not be the right viscosity either. So that's the basis and the premise with lubrication engineering. You have to understand viscosity. You have to understand that whatever you do is going to leave a mark somewhere, and you need to be able to make sure that it runs the way that it's supposed to and the way that it should. because we all want to have better running things, better efficiency, less heat. Everybody wants less heat, except maybe in the winter time, but everybody wants less heat. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I would say that's about lubrication engineering.
Well, that's very interesting, and I think from what you said, in the terms of viscosity, you have to find the right
Yes.
balance, right?
All
So to
about
be able to
balance.
lubricate whatever machine, right, that you're trying to keep going.
Yeah.
When you think about machines, we, in our daily lives, right, we have a lot of things that help us have a easier, easier time in making things at home, and also getting from place to place. But you
Yes.
also think about the machines that make those machines, right? So it just
It
not
keeps
just
going.
at a personal level, it just keeps going. So it sounds like a very interesting
It
field,
is.
to
It
to
is.
get into.
It is
So
very interesting. Like it blows your mind if you're not familiar with it and you now get into it, you're like, oh my god, what was I missing?
yeah, and you have degrees in electrical and
Yes.
computer engineering, right,
Yes.
and asset management. So I mean, so that's not lubrication engineering, or I don't think
No.
that there is a degree in lubrication engineering. So I'm
Not
not
yet.
sure. Not yet. Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good position. And so, what initially drew you to this field, and how did you get started in this field?
So it is very interesting because I have my bachelor's in electrical and computer engineering. That has nothing to do with lubrication engineering, not a thing. But I got this position that was available with Shell Lubricants in Trinidad and Tobago, and they interviewed me for the position. And I remember after the interview, one of the managers there called me and they told me, they're like, we had a lot of people come in for this position, and you have like two things going against you: you're female and you're young. And then I'm
Oh,
like, well, I can't really change either of those things. So where's this going? And then he's like, but I see this working for you because I see you, having the drive, um, going the extra mile, being able to handle this industry. So I was like, yes, definitely. And I got into it, and that's when I realized that lubrication really, it helps and it moves everything, for lack of a better word, right? It connects everything related to reliability, and that's when I fell in love with it. And that's when I started working a lot more in the industry. And from that, I decided to get my master's in engineering asset management, which kind of covers some parts of lubrication, just a little bit. But it sort of brought everything together with that. So even though I did not know, I had no idea what a lubrication engineer was while I was growing up. Like, I don't want to say I fell into it, but I definitely got into it afterwards. And I think it's a field that a lot of people don't know about, but it's starting to grow, and we're starting to bring a more awareness to it because it's such an interesting field and things change so much in this field. So I love it.
well, it certainly sounds like some of your curiosity also led you
Oh,
there,
yes,
right?
definitely.
And and the mere thing that you were told you were young and a female, another
Like,
driver, I would
yeah, yeah,
say.
for
You
sure,
think
for
so?
sure, definitely.
So, and when I think of lubrication engineering, my mental model jumps to a garage where my car is being
Ah,
serviced, right?
yes.
And typically there aren't many women there, like you
No.
just mentioned. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, are there any women, or how many, or are
Mm.
there many women in this field nowadays?
So very interesting facts. A lot of we don't have many women in this field. Let me start off with answering the question properly first. We don't have many women in this field, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. A lot of the badges or the certifications that I've like achieved over the past couple of years or whatnot, I was the first female to do that, or the first female in the world to actually have particular badges, or the first female facilitator to do a particular training for an organization. And I'm like, this should not be. Like, we need more women involved. And like, just I remember when I got my ICML MLE badge, so that's International Council of Machinery Lubrication Engineer, that particular certification, I was the first person in the Caribbean and the first female to get that badge. And at that time, there were only 11 women in the world that had that
Wow.
certification. And like, the year after, I got the ICML varnish badges, and I was the first female in the world. And I'm like, why am I the first female in the world? There better be more women getting involved. And like, I always advocate for that. I always advocate to get more women and men involved, of course, because, you know, just the entire field is a very niche field. And getting more people involved means getting the awareness out there, helping to spread the word, trying to make it better for everybody else. So that's one of the main things, like, just having more representation, because I think diversity of thought is a very big thing. And if we've always done one thing the same way in a particular industry, we can't expect to have any changes. So we need some people getting in there and shaking us up a bit. That's where we came in.
I love that because I mean, and I think that applies to any industry, right?
Yes,
That
definitely.
diversity of thought, being able to bring different aspects or ways of thinking or needs, right?
Yes.
Because you may use something a certain way,
Yeah.
us as women may use a certain machine a certain way, or the specifications to use it may be a little bit different. So all of those considerations need to go
Oh, yeah.
into building, the machines that we build or the systems that we build, and understanding how that works.
Definitely.
It's important. So you are a recognized thought leader in this
Oh,
field.
boy.
Like as you've been saying, you're one of the first female in this field to get the certifications in the particular region of the world. And you're the CEO of your own company, Strategic Reliability. What drove you to start your own company?
Oh, boy. So while I was doing my master's in engineering asset management, I had to do a thesis. And as I was compiling the thesis and going through the work for it, I realized I wasn't giving my best quality. And that's something that always sticks with me. I always want to have like my best quality out there. And I decided to leave my job. Not that I'm advocating for anybody to leave their job if they don't have the best quality, but just saying, right? I left my job and then I started to do a little more networking and just trying to find information. Because, of course, my thesis was on lubrication. Like, why not? Right? And I reached out to several people, and they were so forthcoming with the information. And if they did not have the information, they knew somebody who had the information. And I was like, that's such a great idea. Like, wouldn't it be, so wonderful if we had one hub for all of these different reliability solutions, but had to be strategic. So that's how I came up with the name Strategic Reliability Solutions. And what it does is that it provides so many different solutions, not just for one thing, but anything reliability related. And there's a bit of a quality control element in there because I only work with the best. But, I make sure that whenever people get stuff from us, it is of a particular standard, it's of a particular quality, because quality is very, very, very important to me. And I do not compromise on that one.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned we need standards, right? To make sure that all of the things that we're doing are at a
Yes.
certain level of quality, and meeting those standards. It guides you to
Yes.
having that level of quality, because otherwise, if we're all doing similar things different ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't really provide you as high a quality, or you
Yeah.
can't stand behind
Mm-hmm.
it. So, so in your company, do you is it more of a knowledge and consult, knowledge sharing kind of mindset, or not mindset, but like mission, that
Mm-hmm.
you're training others, you're sharing your knowledge, you are training others to get certified, or
Yes.
what kinds of activities?
So we do a lot of training because I feel that sometimes people don't get that level of confidence and the information and the knowledge that they need to know to get out in the industry and to really make a difference. So training is heavy for us. We do a lot of different things, of course, the lubrication certifications, because I believe in those a lot. And then we have other areas like maintenance, planning, and scheduling, or, different things with asset management, or bringing in stuff with reliability like root cause analysis, bringing all these different aspects together. Because let's face it, we sometimes people get into the industry and they're just, for lack of a better word, they're just filling a gap. So they don't necessarily have the knowledge that they would have needed to get into that particular role. So that's where we need to sort of build up their competency and make sure that they can do what they should be doing, or help the company to get a little bit better in that particular area. So while we focus heavily on the training, all of the trainers that we have, they're also consultants, because they know the space, they know how to make it better, they know how to, get you from point A to point B, and they are very, very familiar with the different things that happen within organizations that you have to change and you have to, make it different. So they are on the ground to help with the consultancy. So a lot of consultancy, a lot of training. So that kind of brings it together in terms of what we could offer. And of course, I'm always writing articles online, in different magazines that you would be seeing coming out, because it's all about being able to share that knowledge and
Right.
helping to build others, because we can't just amass all of this knowledge and just have it in one place and nobody gets to access it.
Absolutely. And then building on that knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a collectively, right? Building on that
Yes.
knowledge to improve it or to learn more. And as you
Mm-hmm.
learn, adding on to it and building onto it.
For
So,
sure.
what challenges have you faced as a woman in a predominantly male field? Like, you mentioned a little
Boy,
bit,
yes.
but I'm curious, right? What challenges have you overcome?
Oh my gosh. The first thing is that everybody might ask me to make coffee. And like I don't drink coffee, so I don't know how to make coffee. So I tell them like straight away, I don't know if you really want me to do that because I don't know how to make coffee. So I'm just letting you know straight up the top of the butt. I can't do it. But I think we have a lot of stereotypes within the industry. They see a female come in and they're like, "Oh, you're in the wrong department. You should be in the admin department, or you should be going to sales or marketing." Or like, no, that's not what I'm here for. But I think it has a lot to do with just our industry just not being familiar with having a female on board, not being familiar with seeing a female in that role, or knowing what to do if you have a female in that role. And it's nobody's fault really. Like, this is how the industry has been, but this is why we're here to change it up a bit, and this is why we're here to make those changes. So a lot of times, I get asked about my competency, because like you're in a room, and more than likely the times that I get called in are the times that you have a lot of pressure on the line because something is down, something is not working. So a lot of times the people in the room, may be like, who is this? What gives her the right to come in here and tell us what we should be doing? So they always try to assess your competency, And
Mm,
while the younger version of me would be just like answering the questions straight off the bat, what I've learned over time is that they're not really looking for the answer to those
mm,
questions. They're trying to assess if you know what you're talking about. So
mm,
most of the times, I kind of, even though I know the answer, I flip the script a little bit
mm,
and I ask them a question to lead them towards the answer. And
mhm.
that way they sort of get thinking a little bit. And then when they finally get to the answer, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure you knew what it was. But it helps to build up a little bit of trust with them.
Mm,
It helps to let them know that you're thinking on the same level with them, that you're on the same team, because that is a big one. Letting them know that you're
mhm.
on the same team. We're not here to be fighting. We're on the same
Right.
team. We're here to solve the problem. We're here to work together. And I think that is one of the things that has definitely helped, like over the years. Like, initially just getting those gears turning and, trying to get them to understand that you're here to help, and it doesn't matter what your gender is. At the end of the day, it's the level of competency, the level of knowledge, the level of experience that you bring to the table, and what you can help them to do, because you're here to solve a problem. So let's solve the problem. Like, get past it. Let's just solve the problem.
Absolutely. I like the way you said you're on the same team, right?
Yeah,
You're there to solve the problem, and that's all that
definitely.
should matter.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't matter whether you're a woman or a man, or
Yep.
just or whatever diversity, right? The
Yes,
diversity of thought is what brings those solutions
definitely.
even quicker to the to the table, right? So that's really interesting. But you're also
Mm-hmm.
an author, right, of many books on the topic of
Oh
lubrication
yeah.
engineering. And one title that really
Oh
caught my
boy.
attention is Preventing Turbo Machinery Cholesterol.
Oh, I
What
love that
motivated you
one.
to write these books?
So initially, I think it was probably back in 2020 when COVID had just hit. I had stopped doing customer visits and I had all this free time on my hands, and I'm like, I don't want all of the knowledge and all of the information that I've put together over the years to go to waste. So I wrote my first book, which was Lubrication Degradation Mechanisms, a complete guide. I wrote the book, but I didn't publish it until I got that MLE certification, because I
Mm.
knew that if I had published it without that, I may have gotten a lot of kickback from the industry, and that, who does she think she is? She doesn't have any of these certifications. So I wrote the book. I decided to go for that particular certification, and that certification is like the highest level that you can get. And I didn't have any of the other lower levels of certifications, and I'm like, I'm gonna go for the top one. There's nothing stopping me for that, so I went for that. I got the certification, and then I published the book, because I figured that I didn't want to be a young female in this space and not having that backing of that certification. So I did that, and when you write technical books, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again, because it's so much work. And that's what I said after that first book, but clearly that didn't happen. So this other book that you're talking about, Preventing Turbo Machinery Cholesterol, I wrote that with Greg Livingstone. And when I first started off in the industry, he was one of the thought leaders. Like, and he still is. Like, he was at the forefront of varnish. And varnish is this thing that plagues equipment. And it's similar to having cholesterol in your body, in your
Mm.
veins. So
Mhm.
he came up with that analogy. And I'm like, perfect. That's exactly what it is. And being able to write that book with him was like a very, very much a full circle moment, because I started off with him in that industry, just reading his papers and all of the research that he would have done. and then being able to work with him to get that book published was just amazing because we were able to bring all that information to people, like get that knowledge to them. And that's what it's always been about, like being able to share the knowledge, being able to get people interested, get people involved in trying to understand some of the problems that we have in the industry without them saying, that's not for me, I'm not going to do that today.
What are some of the other titles you've written?
Oh boy. So I've done, so the first one was lubrication degradation mechanisms, a complete guide, because I talk about
Mhm.
everything there. The second one that I did was a little bit of a follow up to that, and I did that with Bob Latino, and that was lubrication degradation, getting into the root causes. So that one
Mhm.
is like where we do all of these logic trees and we discuss all of the different mechanisms of degradation. And in that same year, I published another book with Michael Holloway, and it was an exam guide for the ICML MLT1 and MLT2. So like that one is like a very textbook type, all of the information that you would need. And while I was writing those two books in that particular year, my publisher actually approached me and she was like, "We want to do something about women in STEM. Can you lead that?" Told her, "No, I don't have the time." And then, I thought about it and I came back to her and I'm like, okay, this is very important. I'm glad you chose me to do it. I will get it done.
Mm.
And the following year, I did the first book about women in STEM, empowering women in STEM. And, that first book covered 20 different authors, male and female, because I wanted to make sure that that book had male authors in it because it's not just for women, it's for the guys as well. And, it was such a nice mix of it. And I did that book while I was doing the cholesterol book, the preventive turbo machinery cholesterol. And afterwards, my publisher asked me if I wanted to do a series with it. And I'm like, sounds interesting because like there were so many people that I reached out to that had so many great stories. And well, the second book was published earlier this year in March, and we had like 22 authors, 11 different countries. It was so
Mhm.
good. Like people got to talk some more about their different stories, how they got into STEM, and we have a third book on the way. And Gabby, I know you have a nice story, so I'm just gonna leave that there for now. For now, I'm gonna leave that there. But we have a third book on the way. So
I'm looking forward to that third
me
book
too.
that you mentioned. It sure sounds like you're a very busy lady
Oh boy.
and in high charger, right? You're driven. But
Mm-hmm.
I always think that sometimes, we get discouraged
Mm-hmm.
in if we're facing some of the challenges and we can't figure it out. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering what motivates you on tough days? How do
Oh
you
boy.
maintain that passion for your work?
I had a couple of tough days recently, a couple of really tough days recently because I was not that well. But I think what really motivates and drives me is that something that I do today can help somebody in the future. And if I push forward and I make sure that I, get this done, I do what I can, the best that I can, because that's all I can really do. You know, it may help somebody in the future or may help somebody with something that they're doing right now or help them to move forward in some way, some small way, so I think that is the purpose that drives me at the end of the day, that it can help somebody at some point and somebody will get some sort of value out of it in one way or another.
That's commendable.
Oh. Thank you.
right? Because people could do, I mean, people could, write books because
Mm-hmm.
of different motivations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the end goal is to help others,
Yeah.
not only, with the knowledge, right, in their field, like you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you're capturing a lot of the knowledge that you've learned, and
Yeah.
making that available to others, but you're
Yes.
also promoting others in
Mm-hmm.
STEM, right, through your other books that you mentioned, and you're a big advocate for women in STEM.
Yes.
So that is really commendable. And so now I'm wondering, why is it so important to you to be an advocate for women in STEM?
Oh boy. I think it's because while I was growing up, there was nobody that looked like me. I didn't know any female engineers. I didn't know anybody was in that field. Like, I just heard about guys in that field, and I'm like, where are the women? You
Mm,
know, where are the women that look like me? And I wanted to make sure that other people who, are getting into this field or even thinking about it can see others who may identify with them. Because I think that's very important. Like seeing somebody else who looks like you within your field, it's like, oh my gosh, she's doing that, so I can do that as well. And sometimes that's all people really need at the end of the day as well. And I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so I'm very blended. So I look like a lot of different things. So I want to make sure that I do what I can to have that sort of representation brought towards not just my field or my industry, but within STEM itself, because I think there's so many good things that we could do there. So many.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, that could be the one thing that triggers another person to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, that person or that female or that girl is
Mm-hmm.
into this field that is primarily only by being done by men, and
Yeah.
just get motivated to search that knowledge, to get
Mm-hmm.
that knowledge, and then eventually get into the field. So that's just really amazing. And so, what advice would you give women considering pursuing a STEM
Mm.
career?
Oh boy. Huh. So I think like I love STEM, clearly. Clearly I do, right?
Mhm.
Um I think that one of the misconceptions we have with STEM is that we think it's all about the hard sciences, like the maths or the physics or the chemistry. But there's so many different fields in STEM that's not related to those hard sciences. They're related to like different things. So it's such a diverse area that you can get into. Like, and I'm just going to bring it back to those empowering women in STEM books because a lot of people who have careers in STEM may not have started there. Like, you don't necessarily need to have a degree in math or a degree in engineering to be a person in STEM. Um, I have somebody who is a venture capitalist, but she advocates for women in STEM funding. So she's still working in STEM. And she
Mhm.
doesn't need to have that hard science background because STEM encompasses so many different things. Like it's such a very diverse field to get into. And you could actually apply that knowledge to so many different areas. Like I know a lot of engineers who've turned into entrepreneurs with me and different other areas that they've gone into because their skills are transferable. So I would always say, getting into a STEM field is very, very good for you. It's going to help you out in the future, and you will have some skills that you can use in different areas. And, you may be able to save the world, just saying, STEM people save the world. But
Thank you, Sonia, for sharing your journey with the Keys to the Future community.
you're most welcome. I'm glad that you had me here for this time and we were able to talk about this because I think this is very important. And I love the work that you're doing, Gabby. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. Thank you for helping highlight different stories. I know just getting the information out there because that's what it's about.
You're so kind. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Don't forget to follow Keys to the Future on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast for more inspiring stories and industry insights. Until then, keep innovating and stay curious.